Okay, let's move to the juicy headline, the juicy quote of the day. It's not often you get a top corporate leader speaking his mind so clearly, but with Rajiv Bajaj, that's something we've come to expect. So the occasion was the launch of a new variant of the Pulsar in Pune. ET Now's Utkarsh Chaturvedi was there, and he asked him what he thought about the competition heating up with new two-wheeler players coming up in the electric vehicle space. This is what Rajiv Bajaj had to say. Listen in.
Taking a cue from what you had said, two lines. One is that you think that the Pulsar is, a bit late, 3 years late, and Pulsar has been one of the biggest learning for you. Do you think that from Chetak to Pulsar was one set of learning, and now from Pulsar to going to Chetak in the EV space will be a big set of learning for the company and the industry? And the same question about EVs. Do you think, given the fact that the startups have really come in, gotten the funding, have the setup ready, the legacy industries are a bit too late in really realizing it, or you think that, we're all on time?
I would say Indian two-wheeler makers, and if I just draw a distinction with Indian four-wheeler makers, just to compare within the same industry, apple to apple, have battled the four Japanese very successfully. If you take the 150cc and above sports motorcycle space, I think if you put together Enfield and Bajaj and TVS, we have what, 70-80%? So, that's the share we have. So, the point I'm making is that good Indian two-wheeler companies are not really as lightweight as maybe some startups would like to think we are. So, question is, who are you going to bet on? Are you going to bet on, as you call them, the legacy companies, as you call us? Or are you going to bet on the startups? I would bet on bet. Bet means Bajaj, Enfield and TVS. I would bet on bet. Because they are champions, they have demonstrated, they have a track record. See, there are two things are very clear today. First of all, if we launch a motorcycle in October, you will get it in November. It is not that if we launch in 2021, you have to wait till 2022. That is the startup way. That is not the legacy way. From a consumer point of view. And from a company point of view, as I've said before, their business model is a cash burn model. Our business model is a cash flow model. We have to make sure we make money when we make a motorcycle. So, of course, we operate very differently. Now, there are startups out there that we respect. Of course, the biggest one is Ola, of course. But we have to still see them produce something and sell something. No, it was not, I was not being sarcastic. I'm just stating as a fact. I mean, Shumi, right? They haven't produced anything yet. They haven't sold anything yet. There is Eicher that we enormously respect because they have really demonstrated capability. In Pune, for example, there's a company called Torque Motors that is going to make an electric motorcycle. We were all in a meeting 2 years ago at Niti Aayog. There was a three-wheeler fellow called Smarty. I couldn't remember the name. I asked Samar the other day, who is this EV fellow that makes three-wheelers or aggregates them, whatever it is, Smarty. So these fellows are there. Ola, Eicher, Torque, Smarty are there, and some of them are in the marketplace. They are doing well. But the reason I would bet on Utkarsh is because, we are champions. There is a saying, where is the Utkarsh? I can't see him. There is a saying, breakfast of champions. You know what champions eat for breakfast? Champions eat oats for breakfast. Oats. Oats matlab Ola, Eicher, Torque and Smarty. तो अभी पिक्चर अभी बाकी है यार.
You can't ask for more if you want to get a juicy quote as a journalist. You can't really ask for more. But a lot of important issues to discuss apart from that headlineable quote from Rajiv Bajaj. He says champions will eat them for breakfast. Loosely put, legacy players will eat the new players for breakfast. Is there dum in that claim. Hormaz Sorabji, Nikun Sanghi, Arun Vinayak joining me on the discussion on this. Hormaz, I'll come to you first because you've been part of several of these conversations, legacy players versus EVs. Is our time come for EVs? Will the EVs work? And let's restrict ourselves to the two-wheeler space where they've had relative success. Today, Rajiv Bajaj has thrown down the gauntlet, saying that, we make vehicles to actually make money. We don't burn cash. What is your take on it?
I think, what's an undisputable fact is that the world is going to go electric. I mean, that just has to happen. In the backdrop of climate change, COP26, we have to get rid of the fossil fuel. Very simple. That's what is needed to, slow down global warming. And it's quite frightening to know that, talking about 3 degrees, by 2050 or end of the century, that is very worrying. So we've got to get rid of the fossil fuel. That's definite. But I think it gets more complicated in the transition. And I think over here, there is a fair amount of hype with the EV players in how fast the world is going to go EV. I think it's going to take much longer than people think. I mean, of course, it's accelerated right now. Fuel prices have kind of sharpened the trajectory upwards. But I mean, this is a 20 million vehicle market. There are a lot of dynamics to it. There are supply chains. It's just the transformation can't just happen overnight. And overnight in this industry means even a couple of years is overnight. So I think it's going to take time. I think what happens with the startups is that this EV narrative today is what raises money. So I think the startups, they raise money. The legacy players, they make money. And I think that's the fundamental difference. And I think for the legacy players, you take Bajaj Auto, juicy profits for something like a traditional three-wheeler, the exports, it's all really, that's what makes the money. And even globally, people have to make money so that they can fund their EV future. If you don't take care of your present, obviously the future is going to be a bit of a challenge. But the startups, they don't have such issues because they are heavily funded. They're a cash burn model. It relies a lot on government subsidies to make it viable. When that goes, so we don't know how viable it will be. And then there's a whole issue of managing the supply chain, the dealer network, the distribution, which is a very core bit of, the two-wheeler business, and especially in the two-wheeler business where people are generally value sensitive. They don't want to take certain risks. They want to go a tried and tested way. So, I mean, looking at Ola, clearly there's a lot of noise happening, but honestly, I'm a bit skeptical. We have to see whether they can prove themselves. I hope they do, because it'll mean a lot for the EV movement. I mean, if Ola gets it right, I think, the whole EV narrative, the whole EV push will really, really take off. But, so far what we've seen, it's not super encouraging in the sense that, we've just heard now November 10th is when they're going to launch out the bike. We're going to be driving them as media in the first week or second week of November. No information as yet. I've booked an Ola. I'm getting it in 20 Feb 2022. So again, we've not seen, a factory. We've not seen these, how do I say, you somehow don't get the confidence that things are happening. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But again, before I end off, I just want to say that it's a very complex business. It's not easy to just make something as like a two-wheeler. In the automotive space, it's even more difficult. I think everyone's looking at Tesla as kind of a benchmark. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world today, but that really is the exception. And you see the legacy brands, what they are doing. See what Volkswagen is doing. See what Hyundai, Kia are doing.
And he had a long journey. Hormaz, Elon had a long. Yeah, exactly. Elon had a long journey. He was written off several times. The whole Tesla
I think
story,
they have to make this noise like because
sandcastle.
I think they have to make the noise. They have to make the noise. They have to create the hype because that's what raises money. And startups are all about raising money and then burning it.
Yeah. Well, that's a different story altogether. Arun Vinayak, as someone who's on, I would say, the EV side of this battle line, what is your response today to both what Rajiv Bajaj said and the question about whether the reality matches the hype? That at the end of the day is the question. Not that eventually all vehicles will be electric. Yes, they will. We can't afford not to have it that way. But is it really that close as we are projecting?
I mean, obviously, I might be biased, but I think climate change aside, EV sales is better. Right? They drive better, they're more fun, they're sexier, and once you drive an EV, I promise you, you can't go back. Right? It's a new technology, so it's got a whole bunch of issues: supply chain issues, charge time issues, battery life. But these are things the industry is focused on solving. So I think the demand in India is real. India wants to go electric. People love electric in India. And it's a question of when, in the next couple of years, do you see the massive S curve sort of picking up, right? So I think it's going to be sooner than predictions. Right? Having said that, this doesn't have to be a binary battle. This doesn't have to be about legacy players versus EV startups. I think the market is large and every company has their strengths, right? If you look at the legacy players, they are definitely the best in the game when it comes to sourcing, manufacturing, distribution. And there is going to be a large market out there who want to buy from a reputed brand, and they'll even pay a premium for it, right? Even if it means the performance specs are a little lower.
That's true.
On the other end,
That's true. But why are you being so politically correct? No, but why are you being so politically correct? I've started off this conversation with a very fiery comment and quote from Rajiv Bajaj, who likes to speak his mind. He's not on this panel. You can surely speak your mind. So, just to the point where he says legacy players are champions, they will eat oats for breakfast. So, my reading of that is when they get into the EV space, because they have to eventually, they have the kind of experience that the new players don't have. And they will eat you for breakfast. What is your response to that?
I was going to come to that. It's not that simple, right? So they have the strengths on production, etc. But when it comes to EV, the R&D game is very different, right? 50% of your EV challenge comes with software. Remaining 30% comes with electronics, right? So 80% of the challenge is electronics and software. And the legacy players have never actually dealt with this, never hired for this, never really build programs around these new fields, right? So it's going to require heavy restructuring, heavy around the R&D itself, which I think is a very hard thing to do for large legacy players. And I think historically around the world and in India, you've seen that EVs are just able to hire better talent and they're able to outperform when it comes to performance, when it comes to specifications, when it comes to overall coolness of product that's out there. And that matters. Right? Definitely startups struggle when it comes to setting up manufacturing, when it comes to setting up scale, timelines are missed. I think it's all real. There is a reality that startups do have to raise funding. You don't have a large cash cow to sort of use and fund your future R&D. So the game is a little different and they do play it differently. But I think the large legacy players will struggle when it comes to actually building out R&D in-house, unless they really rethink structuring the R&D or working with some of these startups, right? I mean, Hero's clearly teamed up with Eicher, TVS is invested in Ultraviolet. So it's not that the other legacy players are completely shut off to startups. Eicher's got a very good relationship with Hero, which is the largest two-wheeler manufacturer in the world. So I think different legacy players will have different strategies around this. But I don't think it's as simple as eating oats for breakfast, because a lot of R&D, a lot of smart engineers that put in a lot of hours, a lot of soul into those products. It's not that easy to just throw money at it and acquire it.
Interesting point of view emerging there. Let me go across to Nikunj Sanghi. Nikunj, where do you weigh in on this? Previously, when we've spoken, you've talked about how the appetite for EVs and two-wheeler EVs especially has been growing in tier 2 cities. How do you weigh in? Will legacy players now eat the new ones for breakfast?
Well, I don't think it's so simple, but I think what Rajiv said made a lot of sense, because when I see specifically, and I'm coming to Ola, playing, like Hormozd said, a lot of things, a lot of questions remain unanswered. We have not seen any action on the ground. We have not seen network being set. So he says he doesn't want to sell through dealers, but he needs a service network. Where is the service network? How will he get the vehicles registered? He's pre-charging for registrations. For test drives, the website says that you have to carry your helmet to the test ride. Now, that's not the purchase experience a nimble-footed startup would want to give. I think what the startup specialize in is giving a seamless customer purchase experience, but it doesn't look like that's happening. Ola has had a number of postponements. Until date, we really don't know. What's happening about the charging infrastructure? I'm a part of the ecosystem. I have not heard their charging infrastructure coming up in any city. They're talking of 400 cities. They've not scouted out for service engineers. They don't have service setups. So yes, and legacy players do have that strength. They have a distribution network, and specifically the two-wheeler players, they have very deep networks, and customers, when they buy a vehicle, they would definitely want some confidence on service of the vehicle, on how the vehicle will be handled. I'd also agree that service is not going to be such a big thing in EVs as compared to an IC engine vehicles, but service will be required. There will be road mishaps. There'll be accidents. Where will the customer go? I think these are some of the questions that the EV players will need to answer. And that's where I think the legacy players have a strength, and very, very huge strength. And I think talking about experience in R&D, I mean, Arun talked about it, but how long has Ola been in this business? How long have they done R&D? I think they've just bought technology, and they're also doing exactly the same thing, buying things. So if it's about buying technology, it's about buying, I'm sure the legacy players will be able to do it.
Let me reverse the argument. Nikuj, let me reverse the argument. Give me a second. Let me reverse the argument. What was stopping this bet team, Bajaj, Eicher, TVS, from getting into the EV space earlier? Right now, on the face of it, what seems to the outside world is that they're sitting on the sidelines while new players have swooped in. They clearly didn't see it coming, did they?
So I think somewhere the legacy players did misread the speed of transition. And I think the speed of transition has been triggered off by this huge rise in fuel costs, which has happened over the past few months. And I think that trigger, I don't think the legacy players read, and they thought there was time and they could take their time in coming into this space. And I think that's where the EV players jumped in. They are nimble-footed, they are agile, they are fast, and they are young. So they did make the best of it. And the legacy players did miss a chance. They could have come in. In fact, they should have come in much earlier than now. I mean, they're now stepping in, which is probably a shade too late.
Well, have they missed the bus? Can they catch up? And of course, at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. Let's see how that Ola two-wheeler actually looks, feels and works. Hormaz will be the one to tell us that when he gets the opportunity. Meanwhile, the game is on. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the show this evening. We'll take a very short break on the India development debate. A lot more coming up on the other side.